Hi everyone, I hope you're well. Today I'll be talking about audio drama with my guest, who amongst many other talents is a director at Big Finish Productions, a company that produces audiobooks and plays based primarily, wait for it, on cult science fiction. Yes, amazing shows such as Doctor Who, Torchwood and Blake 7, just to mention a few. Welcome, Helen Godwin. It's great to have you join me.
Hi, Samina. I'm delighted to be here. It's always a real honor to be asked to talk about my work.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great to have you. So listen, as I mentioned in your intro, you're multi-talented. I mean, you're an actress, you're a singer, you're a writer, director, and producer. However, for the purposes of this interview, I'd like to focus on your work as an audio director and producer, if that's okay.
Of course, yeah.
Sure. So listen, currently you're working on some classic shows, such as those I mentioned in your intro, as well as Blake 7, something I used to watch as a kid. I used to absolutely love that show, and Avengers. What's it like to be involved in these really like high profile but retro shows, if you like?
I always describe it to people. If people ask me what I do, I say, well, I work in the world of audio drama and I work in quite a niche arena, which nevertheless has a huge following. I mean, Big Finish is the second largest independent audio drama company in the country, but we are predominantly, specifically focused on these series, these classic series that have a huge fan base, and it's such a passionate fan base. And that is a constant delight that the people who are buying and listening to the product adore it, and wait for it, and it enhances their lives. And that's a real joy to be a part of.
And I guess there's quite a bit of responsibility there, because I know super fans can be quite discerning when it comes to content.
Yes, definitely. I think you have to set out in this kind of arena, understanding that you can't please everybody all of the time. There'll always be someone who passionately disagrees with the way that storyline has gone. It's not canon, although we are very careful to keep to, the constraints of the worlds, the mythology that's been created. It's a huge responsibility. But on the whole, I think we're in a very privileged position, because in the main, people just love the content and are really enjoying it and are really enthusiastic about it.
And so with the storylines, are you involved in the storylines? I mean, just share with us what director of audio dramas means.
Well, yes, I'm involved in the storylining when I am a writer. So that's quite a different arena. It's two very specific jobs. However, I do get sent the scripts and I get to read through them. And if there are bits in it where I think, well, that doesn't work, and I don't understand that emotional journey, or that doesn't work practically, or we've missed that, then I will flag that up, and it will probably get a little rewrite. But it has already gone through the writer, the producer, and the editor before it gets to me. So hopefully they will have caught most of those things. So yes, there's not a great deal of input into the stories as a director, but as a producer, very much so. You can be the instigator of the whole concept when you're in that role.
So what do you do as director then of audio drama?
I will cast it, schedule it, have dealings obviously with all the agents as I talk to them about their clients' availability to be in it. I will listen to hundreds of demos, trying to find the right voices, because I know exactly what I'm looking for. And I will manage the whole day, manage the logistical running of the day, manage how the actors feel about the day. I will obviously be nurturing the best performances that I can out of those actors. And it's very much my job to make sure that they have a great, fun, uplifting day. I think that's kind of the main crux of my responsibility. But there is quite a lot of administration around that schedule and juggling around people's availability. And that can take days and days and days to create.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess actually recording an episode, that could take quite a while as well.
Each episode takes a day.
But that's not bad. I thought it might be longer.
No, it's not bad, but that we can then have a couple of pickup days if our lead actors are not available. So then we'll have another day to pick up the doctor, or another day to pick up the doctor's assistant because they're off, doing other things. I forgot to mention that, of course, after we have recorded the tapes, that's how old I am. The files will then go to the editor and the sound designer, and then I will get those back in a few weeks or even a few months' time, and I'll listen to those edits, and then I'll do very detailed, comprehensive notes, as minuscule sometimes as, can we have that sound effect, like a heartbeat after that word? Can we have a different atmos? Can we make the room sound larger? That kind of thing. And then we'll get another edit with the music on it. And so I'll be listening to that 2, 3, 4 times before I can sign off on it and say, yes, I'm happy with how that's sounding.
And of course, this is really critical because there's no visuals to go with the drama. It's all audio. So every little nuance in audio, in voice, in sound effect is absolutely critical to telling the story.
Yes, yeah, there's a rhythm to it. The dialogue has to be paced correctly, because often you're splicing it together from different takes. And if it's even just a tiny bit too much of a gap, or it's too close together, it doesn't sound natural. So it's my job to pick up on those little things, make sure it sounds really completely natural. And it's the geography of the environment has to really be so clear to the listener, because it is audio cinema, really. We are creating a soundscape and everything has to make sense within it. So it's always good to have another pair of ears, because even after I've signed off on it, the producer then has to listen to it and will often have a couple of things that I've missed. So we're trying to make it as perfect a soundscape as we can.
Well, I love it. It's so detailed and so thorough, and a lot of care and energy gone into it. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So listen, let's go back a few steps. Like, how did you get into this? How did you get into becoming an audio drama director?
Well, it's one of those quite typical stories in a sense, in that I was already working with Big Finish as an actor, and I was working quite prolifically with them over the 20 years that they've been around. I suppose the first 15, I was in over 100 audio dramas playing various aliens and different kind of.
I love it.
Yeah. But and then I kind of approached our executive producer, Nicholas Briggs, and the CEO of the company, Jason Hay-Gellery, both of whom I was very familiar with. I approached them with great trepidation and said, would you consider me as a director? And the reason I felt confident enough to do that was because I had been writing, producing and directing my own projects over the years. And I knew I had a body of work behind me that demonstrated that I was capable of managing these processes and getting them on their feet and, getting them in front of an audience. And in addition to that, I had been working for some years, for about 4 years when I first started my family. I was a drama-led training consultant. And this, I think, has given me enormous confidence in my people skills, my people management, my leadership skills. I learned all about the kind of behavioral models for how to manage people in the most positive way. And I think that gives me a real advantage in terms of directing. So I think if I hadn't had the combination of those things, I would never have asked.
Yeah. And I guess, being an actor as well, what the actors need. So it from both perspectives.
Very much so. And I really make a point of trusting actors, even when they're nervous and they're not really delivering at first. And that does happen occasionally. You've booked an actor who's quite experienced and they'll come in and they're not used to this environment, or they've not keyed into the role yet. And the very last thing you need to do is tell them that's not working, because then they're crushed and you've blown it. You might get a good performance out of them, but they're not going to go away feeling like they've had a great day. And that's, as I've said, is a priority for me. So even if an actor is interpreting things in a way that I hadn't heard in my head, I have to trust that their interpretation is still going to convey that character and that journey to the audience. Because I don't want to give them a line reading. I'm never going to do that. That's incredibly disrespectful to do that to a trained, experienced actor. So the more you trust them, the better and better the performance gets.
And I don't mean to sound disrespectful with this question, but I guess it has to be asked, right? So I totally get what you're saying. There has to be a sensitivity, if you like, because everybody's an artist. You're an artist in your right, in your own right. They're artists delivering, as actors. However, some actors are known for being a bit, how can I put it, politely, with ego, with perhaps a little bit of an inflated ego. So it's a tricky line you're treading, like how to negotiate that with trying to be respectful, but trying to get what is best for the show, not necessarily for the actor or for yourself.
Yes, and that is definitely a challenge. Particularly, we're working with actors who've played, certainly with Doctor Who, all the Doctors, it's in their DNA. They've been playing that for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. How dare I, some jumped up little upstart, come in and say, oh, no, I don't think the Doctor would do it that way. So in that respect, yes, I have to totally kind of bow to their experience of that role. However, I can still say, well, we've got more noise in the background here. I need it pitched up in volume. And I think you would be running, you'd be a bit more out of breath. And there are interpretive things where I would say, well, I think he can be a bit more empathetic there. I think that he could be gentler. So I'm never going to delve into the core of that character in that regard. But in terms of ego, yes, occasionally that I have encountered that. And I think that's where my leadership background, the training background comes in, because I work on the theory that you give people what they need for their particular communication style, and you then will have more influence because they have respect for you. Also demonstrate that you are in control of what you're doing. You're professional, you're prepared, you've done everything that you need to do in order to let the day run smoothly. And then, nobody's going to be able to say, well, you haven't done your bit. So it's, there's a little bit of positive influence that has to consciously be done when you've got someone who's perceives himself to be high status. I, like you, I'm not remotely bothered about celebrity. I couldn't care less. And I think, again, that's an advantage for me. These are my colleagues. And
well, it's for me, it's equal status, because one just happens to be on the screen doesn't mean they're more important than somebody who's directing, or even the runner, or even the cleaner on the shoot, because not unless everybody puts in, we don't get an end product. That's always my process when I think.
Yes, and this whole kind of concept of celebrity is it's a diversion, because we know they're human, we know they're fallible, we know from all the Daily Mail headlines, how many people fall by the wayside and how many people have so many problems due to being famous. And really, I think if you're going to be working in that environment, you just have to treat them with respect, but understand that they're there because they had the right face, right place, right preparation at the right time. And there are hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of actors who didn't have that combination of advantages, but they're no less talented.
Couldn't agree with you more. So let's talk about the audio industry, because quite a few of my subscribers here on YouTube, they're interested in getting into the audio industry. So what kind of opportunities are available? And also, like, what kind of person do you need to be in terms of skill set, in terms of personal traits? I mean, you've shared some of the personal traits, especially when you have to work around talent and how organized you have to be. But if you could just expand on that a little bit and talk about, are there opportunities to get into this business?
Well, of course, there are opportunities. But as with every other area of the entertainment industry, it is really down to preparation, self-motivation, the degree to which you are generating your own work and your own opportunities, persistence, resilience, professionalism. Persistence is a tricky one because we all know if you send an email to somebody and you don't hear anything back, it's incredibly demoralizing. But I do know I've been in charge of recruitment at an agency before. Obviously we get inundated with same at Big Finish as well. We get inundated with people wanting to work for Big Finish as actors, principally. And it's the people who politely and persistently and succinctly drop us a line every 6 to 8 weeks and say, hello, just checking in to see if there are any opportunities. And actually, I think there has been a study done. I don't know, I can't give you the source of this, but I believe you need to contact people at least 6 times before the name starts to resonate, before we start to digest, oh yeah, I've seen that name before. And there have been several occasions where I've been contacted several times, not in a pushy way, not with endless emails, but they've just landed in my email box at the right time. And I'm familiar enough with their name to think, oh, okay,
I'll give you an opportunity. I'll take a chance. This is really interesting, Helen, because this is exactly how I operated at the beginning of my career. Okay. Because one of the best pieces of advice I got right at the beginning was you don't necessarily need to be the most talented person in the room, but you need to be the most persistent person in the room. And that doesn't mean nagging and harassing people. It's exactly as you described. And I do networking sessions, and that's exactly how I describe it. It's a long-term relationship you're building with people, not just expecting something. It's not about expectation or asking for a job. It's building a relationship. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, if I were to give any kind of main nugget of advice, it would be about the crucial nature of people skills, influencing skills. And these are things that you can learn. You can look up behavioral models and communication skills and understand how you adapt your approach for that individual. How do you recognize what kind of communication style they have? And how do you then give them a bit of what they want? For example, I work with quite a lot of very controlling, in control, but directive, almost abrupt people. And I understand that's not them being rude. That's them being very businesslike and getting the job done, because their driving force is to do it the way they want to do it. They want to get it done. If they have to delegate, fine. But what they don't want is reams and reams of information. But then you'll get other personality types who do like the detail. And if you really think about it, you know who those people are. So if you want to influence them, give them what they want, give them some detail, show that you've done your research. So it's about being able to analyze those different types of people and how to adapt accordingly to get
and I guess
what you want.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I guess we can start practicing that even for those at entry level or who haven't got their foot through the door of this industry yet. Start practicing on those in your community, and that by practicing and being able to handle various kinds of personalities will set you in good stead for when you actually do get your foot through the door. Now, in terms of skills, you said about generating for yourself. So with audio, you do need to have particular skills. Do you have to go and do a paid course to do it? Or could you just start up your own podcast, experiment and learn on the job, so to speak, even though it's not paid, doing your own podcast?
Well, yes, unfortunately, all of these things are speculative, and that's part of this any aspect of this creative industry. You have to create speculative work. I would say either route is valid. The way I have done it is to kind of create stuff and learn as I go along. So for example,
creating a portfolio, you mean? So you've got a body of work to show.
Yes, yeah. So I would create a show and then I would go and kind of research on how to produce it. I would buy books, I would make my own, analysis of it, and then think, okay, well, that's what I need to do. And then you learn as you go along. And similarly with learning about the technical side, I'm not by no means an engineer, but I do have my own studio and I do understand the terminology, and I have paid for a series of video courses to learn how to use that software on a very basic kind of level. but enough to be able to communicate with my engineer, to understand what a noise floor is, what the gain is, what the, how to set up my microphone, and all those things will really give you an advantage. And they're brilliant things to know anyway,
Yeah, definitely for the audio industry.
Yeah.
And also, I love what you said about creating your own portfolio. I think for people to go away and create their own content is just spectacular, because I always say, show, don't tell. If you can show somebody something you've done, that's going to put you in a better position for gainful employment rather than just talking about what you can do.
Yeah.
So I think that's brilliant advice. So listen, Helen, it's been great to get an insight into your world. So thank you for sharing that. But to wrap up, could you just give some final thoughts, some advice to all those who are joining us today who want to work in audio drama or in the world of audio books, perhaps?
Yeah. So listen as much as you can to other people's work. Get au fait with the technical side of it. Get a good mic, get a good camera, because so you can communicate with people like me and Samina. It's worth investing in decent equipment. You can learn anything on YouTube. Learn the basics of how to run a studio. And if you want to start making audio drama, start making audio drama. There's nothing to stop you. There are loads of people, certainly in the world of Doctor Who, there are loads of fan-made audio dramas, and I know they have such a great time making those. And there are a couple of people who have crossed over from there into doing it professionally. So if that's your goal, then do what you love. Big Finish started because it was created by fans. They started doing cassette tapes recordings in their garage.
That's a pre-90s thing for those who are younger.
Yeah. Yes, they were recording it, for fun, because they loved Doctor Who and they wanted to create new stories, and they made their passion their job. This very successful company.
Amazing. I was going to say, actually, whilst you were mentioning, fans creating their own little dramas around Doctor Who or some of the other sci-fi shows, I was going to say some of them are really good. I've seen them online and on YouTube as well. They're pretty good. So no wonder Big Finish has gone on to be so successful, Well, listen, Helen, really, really great advice and a great insight into what you do. I'm very grateful for you joining me today. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. No, it's been a real joy to just talk about it, and I hope it helps people. It is possible. All things are doable. You've just got to bite the bullet and cope with the moments where you get pushed back.
Absolutely. It's about going for it. Thank you so much, Helen.